Hello, my name is David Segura, and I'm gonna be talking about the World War II, more specifically about its ending chapter, the one that started in 1945, and the aftermath of the war. First of all, the Western Allies. Operation Overlord, their long-debated invasion of northern France, took place on June 6, 1944, the war's most celebrated D-Day, when 156,000 men were landed on the beaches of Normandy between the Armistice Treaty and the southeastern end of the Cotentin Peninsula. 83,000 British and Canadian troops on the eastern beaches, 73,000 Americans on the western, under Eisenhower's supreme direction and Montgomery's immediate command. The invading forces initially comprised the Canadian First Army, the British Second Army, and the British 1st and 6th Airborne Divisions, the U.S. First Army, and the U.S. 82nd and 101 Airborne Divisions. Allied aircraft destroyed most of the bridges over the Seine River to the east and over the Loire to the south. The German reserves thus had to make long detours in order to reach the Normandy battle zones, and were so constantly harassed on the march by island strafing that they suffered endless delays and only arrived in driblets. The German forces would have had ample time to pull back to the Seine River and to form a strong defensive barrier line there had it not been for Hitler's stubbornly stupid orders that there should not be no withdrawal. More than 200,000 German troops were taken prisoner in France, and 1,200 German tanks had been destroyed in the fight. When the Allies approached the German border at the beginning of September, after a sweeping drive from Normandy, there was no organized resistance to stop them from driving into the heart of Germany. Before their ground forces were ready for the final assault on Germany, the Western Allies intensified their aerial bombardment. This offensive culminated in a series of 5 attacks on Dresden launched by the RAF with 800 aircraft in the night of February 13-14, 1945, and continued by the U.S. Air Force with 400 aircraft in daylight of February 14, with 200 on February 15, and with 400 again on March 2nd, and finally with 572 on April 17. By April 25, the armies that shook up and König had completely encircled Berlin, and on the same day they linked up with the Americans on the Elbe River. On April 30, Adolf Hitler committed suicide with her in the ruins of the Chancellery, as the advancing Soviet troops were less than a half a mile from his bunker complex. The surrender of the German forces in northwestern Europe was signed at Montgomery's headquarters on Lüneburg, held on May 4. Pending the Soviet entry into the war against Japan, a declaration was issued on July 26 calling on Japan to surrender unconditionally and forecasting the territorial spoliation of the empire and the military occupation of Japan proper as well as the prosecution of war criminals, yet still promising that the Japanese people will not be enslaved or the nation destroyed. Japan's unsatisfactory response to the Allies' post-down declaration decided the matter. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb carried from Tinian Island in the Marianas in an specially equipped B-29 was dropped on Hiroshima at the southern end of Honshu. The combined heat and the blast pulverized everything in the explosion's immediate vicinity, generated fires that burned almost 4.4 square miles completely out, and it immediately killed some 70,000 people. A second bomb dropped on Nagasaki on August 9 killed between 35,000 and 40,000 people, injured a somewhat like number, and devastated 1.8 square miles. On August 10, the Japanese government issued a statement agreeing to accept the surrender terms of the Potsdam Declaration on the understanding that the emperor's position as a sovereign ruler will not be prejudiced. At the end of the war, the conference was held in Potsdam, Germany, to set up peace treaties. The countries that fought with Hitler lost territory and had to pay reparations to the Allies. Germany and its capital, Berlin, were divided into 4 parts. The zones were to be controlled by Great Britain, the United States, France, and the Soviet Union. The 3 Western Allies and the Soviet Union disagreed on many things, and as time went on, Germany was divided into 2 separate countries: East Germany, which had a communist government, and West Germany, which has a democratic state. Berlin was also divided into East and West Berlin, Austria was also occupied by the four allies from 1945 to 1955. One by one, the Russians started to take over countries in Eastern Europe and install communist governments there. The division of Europe and the beginning of the Cold War between the democratic nations of the West and the communist countries of Eastern Europe. The end of the Second World War did not signal a return to normality. On the contrary, it resulted in a new conflict. The major European powers that had been at the forefront of the international stage in the 1930s were left exhausted and drained by the war. Setting the scene for the emergence of two new global superpowers, two blocs developed around the Soviet Union and the United States, with other countries being forced to choose between the two camps.